Penguin Random House Audio presents Vanishing Maps, a novel by Cristina García. Read for you by Frankie Corzo, with Marisa Blake, Anthony Lee Medina, and Angel Harper.
No border holds forever. Günter Grass.
1999-2000. Part 1. Prologue. Ivanito Villaverde. Berlin. It was past midnight and the crowd was clamoring for their diva. At Chez Schatzi, everyone danced with whomever they pleased. Tonight was another coming-out party, a flagrant parade of secrets. Life was more alluring when they drank, when they got high, when they swayed as one. Last New Year's Eve, when La Ivanita dragged a jewel-encrusted ball and chain on stage, she'd incited a riot of rejoicing. For this and much more, she was beloved in ravenous after-hours Berlin. Backstage, La Ivanita put the finishing touches on her makeup: thickly angled eyeliner, iridescent powder, a slip of pink gloss on her lips. She adjusted her wig and smoothed the satin pleats of her vintage strapless gown. For the past 4 months, she'd been rehearsing a playlist of Olga Guillot's sultriest boleros. Miénteme, te amaré toda la vida, total, until her lip-syncing was flawless. Guillot was her latest muse, a half-Jewish diva, a genius of gesture and melodrama, who'd enthralled Cuba in the 50s. Her voice drifted up from the turntable, which was perched next to a crystal bowl brimming with tangerines. La Ivanita appraised herself in the gilded full-length mirror, a flea market find. The vendor had flaunted its pedigree, but she'd bargained him down to 20 marks flat. A reproduction of Otto Dix's Metropolis hung on the wall behind her, its central panel luridly visible in the mirror. She placed 3 caramels and a shot glass of schnapps on her tiny Santeria altar, which was flickering with votive candles. A flash of movement over her shoulder distracted her. La Ivanita turned around, vertebrae cracking, and scrutinized the tangle of glittering costumes in which her fans occasionally hid. She dreamed of finding her Russian dancer there, a god of a man, with whom she'd enjoyed a swoony affair years ago. Her testicles ached just thinking about him. As she faced the mirror again, a thumb-sized turbulence like a speck of thundercloud rotated in the upper left-hand corner. The thundercloud grew 3-dimensionally, shooting off miniature lightning bolts, then floated directly into her sightline as if daring La Ivanita to defy its existence. It was from this vortex that her mother emerged, or rather, the ghost of her did, lumpy and sleepy-eyed and wrapped in what looked like a World War II parachute, its edges frayed with red thread. La Ivanita was stunned. She tried to speak, but her throat closed off and her whole body trembled. Was she hallucinating? Her mother shifted incrementally, turned in place to show off her camouflage. La Ivanita didn't know where to focus as the colors blended and whirled. Mami opened her mouth and emitted a low, rasping sound, as if trying to rip the fibrous membrane dividing the living from the dead. Imagination, like memory, can transform lies to truth, she used to say. Is that what was happening here? A brazen rearranging of reality. Before La Ivanita could utter a word, Mami vanished through the same knot in the universe from which she'd appeared. Only the spectral scent of gardenias betrayed that anything unusual had occurred. The opening notes to Guillot's Miénteme reverberated through the theater. La Ivanita felt shaky, but she'd worked too hard to call off this show. She pushed aside the leather curtain of her dressing room and glided onto the proscenium in sequined heels. The spotlight transformed her dazzling white gown into an even more dazzling blue. The piano fell reverentially silent. Waiters were fixed in place. Silver trays suspended. Fanciful cocktails froze in mid-air. La Ivanita raised her arms and welcomed the worshipful roar of her fans. Yes, this was her private chapel. Voy viviendo ya de tus mentiras. Sé que tu cariño no es sincero. Sé que mientes al besar y mientes al decir te quiero.
Havana. 1. Celia del Pino. Havana. Celia del Pino woke up fiercely thirsty in the ice-cold bed. The blinds were half open, inviting the last strips of moonlight into her room. If she strained to listen, she could hear the scratching of the late-shift nurse's pen. An injured cement worker's moaning, his thumb crushed in an industrial accident. A lonely cricket singing for its mate. Neon lines pulsed on the beeping monitor at her side, recording her every breath and heartbeat. There was a sharp twinge in the crook of her elbow, where the IV had been snugly taped. Her hands felt arthritic. She reached for the glass of water on her nightstand and accidentally spilled half of it on her hospital gown. Celia patted herself dry with a thin blanket, then rearranged it over her knees. There was little left of her to create much of a topography beneath the unraveling cotton. Just sunken planes and bony angles, the painful mound of her belly, a single shriveled breast. Her room, a stark enameled white, reminded her of the Russian refrigerator she'd been awarded once for exemplary service to the revolution. It was barely dawn. 2 flies circled lazily overhead, as if through honey. Celia's vision blurred, then grew inexplicably telescopic. From her window, she caught glimpses of Havana's patchwork rooftops, its illegal antennae, laundry lines crisscrossing the crumbling balconies. A viejita played solitaire at her kitchen table, a clay pot of lilies at her feet. The ocean wasn't visible, but Celia smelled it like she could smell her own fermenting flesh. A gentle hand on her brow disrupted her reveries. It was Reynaldo, the kind morning nurse, who'd come to take her temperature. Celia's fever remained high, and her intestinal infection was pernicious despite the deluge of antibiotics. Her diverticula remained dangerously inflamed. One of them had ruptured, the doctor said, partly spilling the contents of her colon into her abdominal cavity. Sepsis had set in. For the last 5 days, Celia had been flirting with death, semi-conscious, dizzy from the drugs and unfamiliar faces. Reynaldo gave her a dozen pills and a cup of diluted orange juice to wash them down. "You know I can't even swallow an aspirin," Celia rasped. "Go ahead, just one at a time. I have a prize for you when you finish." Celia trusted this nurse. He was a good son of the revolution. Never any talk of abandoning the island, of living like el rey de los gusanos in Miami. She swallowed the first pill without trouble, choked on the second and third. Reynaldo refilled her cup halfway. It was only for the sweetness of the orange juice that she finished. The nurse rewarded Celia with a sheet of paper and a ballpoint pen. "To write back to that lover of yours," he teased her. "You're never too old for romance." "Nonsense." Celia was pleased, but tried not to show it. "And what about that cigar you promised me?" She took up smoking after Líder had quit 14 years ago, as if to continue the pleasure for him, as if to say, "I'll take the risk for you, guapo, no te preocupes." "That's going to be a lot harder," Reynaldo laughed, and tucked a nub of gardenia-scented soap into Celia's battered handbag. "Gracias, niño. You must be convinced that I'm going to make it out of here alive." "Alive and squeaky clean," the nurse sang as he headed out the door. "So write to him already. You won't be kicking around forever." It had been weeks since Gustavo's first letter arrived, after an inexplicable months-long journey from Spain, damaged and multi-stamped, a half-dozen pages of oniony airmail paper translucent as her own skin. Another had followed just yesterday. Herminia had delivered it to Celia in the hospital, along with a batch of her malanga fritters. Now, don't go planning your funeral yet, her neighbor joked.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?